So today we're going to be chatting about tattoos, more specifically how ancient people used to use them and how they became popular in the West. Not too sure why people decided to stick themselves with ink and needles, but hey, let's learn together, right? Tattoos have been used since the dawn of time to relay different cultural, religious, and artistic expressions. There have been so many mummified remains that have been discovered over the years that have these markings. Let's take one example, Otzi the Iceman. He was so well preserved that researchers could clearly see these markings all over his low back, knees, and ankles, which were covered in a series of dots, crosses, and lines. It's thought that these markings were used as an ancient form of acupuncture. Interesting, right? But Otzi wasn't the only ancient guy marking these tats. There were actually ancient Egyptian mummies that were found, and they were originally thought to be women who did spicy work. Sorry, I don't want to upset the YouTube gods. However, recent discoveries have found that these mummies actually had the tattoos to protect themselves during childbirth and during pregnancy. Common figures that these women wore were deities like the Egyptian god Bes, which was the protector of childbirth, and the Eye of Horus, which symbolized protection and good luck. Unfortunately, tattooing fell out of favor in the West around 1787 AD when Pope Hadrian banned it. After that, there's really little recorded history of tattooing up until kind of more of the modern era, I would say. But okay, we know more about ancient tattoos and how people used them, but what about more modern tattoos? How did more modern tattoos come to be? Surely tattoos now aren't used for acupuncture or amulets, and it's not like they're banned anymore, right? Well, to answer these questions, let's take a look at 1770s England, when Captain James Cook was on his way with his crew sailing to French Polynesia. Many people think that Captain James Cook was the one to discover tattoos, but he wasn't. Polynesian people were tattooing way before Captain Cook and his crew came around. I think Captain Cook initiated the popularization of the tattoos in the West. And let me tell you why. So, this description, tattoo, comes from the Tahitian word tatau, which means to mark the skin in color. Polynesian cultures created hand-tapped tattoos called uhi, which were created with the handcrafted ink called pa'u. The pa'u was created by the soot of the kukui nut and sugarcane as well. Here are some designs of early Polynesian tattoos that Captain Cook and his men probably saw. Cook and his men described that they saw different patterns of stars, geometric shapes, animals, and humans depicted throughout these tattoos. Now, the placement of the tattoos were also really important on the body, and they still are as well. So you can see that these tattoos were really deep rooted in the Polynesian culture. Obviously, the people who adorned these super cool designs made it look really cool. So Captain Cook and his men wanted some of their own. And here begins the popularization of tattooing in the West. The sailors adorned themselves with turtles and anchors to show off their adventures. And you might think that when they came back to England that Victorian high society scoffed at them, right? Well, maybe in public, but behind closed doors, a lot of Victorian era folks actually had tattoos of their own. It's not super well documented, but I have some evidence I want to bring to your attention. One group of researchers did a data poll on the established literature that was available from about the 1800s regarding tattoos, and what they found was really interesting. So, over 50,000 convicts from Britain and Australia had tattoos at this time. Now, you might be thinking, okay, yeah, like, of course, people who are going to jail are going to have tattoos, right? But I think this points us in the direction that tattoos were just really cool and popular at this time, too. Now, I say this because high Victorian society was not likely to openly confess that they had tattoos or whatever was taboo at the time, right? But inmates had to be identified with their tattoos, so there was a detailed log of what they had on their bodies. So, about 50,000 convicts at this time had tattoos, right? And this number just kept increasing. It's not that these tattoos were just for hooligans or rough men, as a lot of people like to believe, but it was just cool and fun, and everyone liked having them. It was like their little fun secret. So, a lot of sailors and soldiers were returning from war, and they had a lot of tattoos, so that kind of helped bring it into the public eye, as well as freak shows, because at this time they were also gaining popularity. So, since I have more talking points about the tattoos of the convicts, I will be talking about that. The data poll found that there were a lot of naval themes, themes of religion, love, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the regular society folks who had tattoos had initials, probably for their lovers. So, we know how tattoos were circulating in Europe at this time, but how did they get to America? Well, as far as we know, indigenous cultures have been using tattoos as part of their religious and cultural practices for a really long time. The oldest evidence that I could find was from about 1710, and you can see here in this portrait of four prominent indigenous leaders at the time. I want to draw your attention to this guy here. He is the king of the Maquas tribe, and you can see that he has a beautiful chest piece. But tattoos were prominent all throughout North America at this time. Inuit women had beautiful lined face tattoos that helped to signify their status in their society as well as their readiness for marriage or childbirth. Typically, an older woman would dip some thread into some soot and then put it on the younger woman's face to kind of draw an outline of the tattoo. Other examples of early North American tattoos include that of the Yuma tribe. They're from the Arizona area, and the women of this tribe had more intricate face tattoos to signify their status within their tribe and family ties as well. And the men had tattoos and piercings as well to look more intimidating in battle. But these tattoos weren't just for show, they had some religious connotations as well. The Yuma tribe believed that tattoos would help you along in the afterlife, so if someone didn't have tattoos, they would kind of be lost in limbo. I could go on all day about the intricacies of tattoo culture within each individual tribe, but we'd be here for like days and weeks and months. I want to skip forward a little bit to talk to you about how tattoos even got to our modern era, like circa 1900. So let's skip forward a little bit to see how we got to where we are as far as acceptance of arm sleeves and neck tattoos. How did we get here from a seemingly more conservative background? Now, at this time, there was an overarching stereotype that tattoos were just for sailors, soldiers, and circus freaks. But that started to fade in the 1930s. Now, if you don't know about American history, the 1930s was around the time of the Great Depression, and a lot of people were in some tight financial spots. But this is when the United States started rolling out Social Security for people, and they had a complex number written down for them to remember. How do you think that somebody with poor financial situation, maybe not the best education, is going to remember a bunch of numbers? Well, get it tattooed on their body, of course. I think this was just an excuse for people to like get some numbers tattooed on themselves, but then also get a badass eagle or a flag kind of next to it, because people did that. It may not look as elaborate as this, but certainly they got like kind of fun pictures that were really patriotic next to the numbers. But what would you do if you were really in a super unstable kind of financial situation? Well, a lot of people who were in some very dire situations would go up to local tattoo artists and just tell them, hey, tattoo me wherever you want, head to toe. They let tattoo artists ink them up from head to toe to hopefully go to the circus, because there at least they'd have a warm bed, some food, and they could hopefully send some money back to their folks. But a lot of people had this idea and it didn't work out because the circus industry was just so oversaturated at this time. While it was bad for their situation, a lot of tattoos on these folks all around kind of helped to destigmatize the tattoos overall. Sorry, my camera died and it is nighttime now, but I wanted to record today. But anyway, back where we left off. Tattoos waxed and waned in their popularity, with them gaining more popularity around war times. And tattoo artists in the 1940s and 50s were pretty much regular average Joes. You know, maybe it was somebody who was a sign painter. Sometimes they would be circus performers as well. But it was pretty much the average Joe up until more large names like Martin Hildebrandt started popping up. Something that really sucks about the westernization of tattoos is that women were largely excluded from the scene for a very long time. Cindy Ray Nichols was the first female tattoo artist in Australia in 1960, and it wasn't until the 1970s that it started to become more well accepted to be a woman who was tattooed in America. Even then, tattoo artists would try to dissuade the pretty young white women from getting tattoos because it would inevitably lead to a whole thing. Like parents, husbands, boyfriends would be coming in, storming in, like throwing a tantrum that you tainted my woman, even though it's like she can make her own decisions, right? Anyway, the inclusion of women in the tattoo industry was really awesome because around the 70s, things started to kind of change. Like tattoo styles started branching off, and there were a lot more styles to get other than just American traditional, I would say. Like there were floral themes as well as more delicate line work, and modern art was kind of included in this realm as well. So the tattoo industry as a whole kind of opened itself up to a whole new demographic of people, which is kind of nice. And this brings me to the 1990s and early 2000s. So the punk scene was pretty big at this time, but it was also a underground realm that was highly dominated by men. So in the early 2000s, there was a movement created by the women in the punk scene to address hot button issues that nobody was really talking about. These included themes like the patriarchy, rape, sexual harassment, sexism, etc. And it's often associated with the second wave of feminism. And in addition to discussing these heavily scrutinized topics, Riot Grrrl also helped destigmatize tattoos on women because a lot of the punk girls who were advocating for this group were tattooed. Although I would say that it wasn't like widely accepted after the Riot Grrrl movement. I would say it was still kind of frowned upon by older generations, as it still kind of is. And this brings us to the age of the new millennia. With the invention of sites like Facebook, MySpace, Instagram, all of that stuff, it's very easy to share photos of yourself and photos of others. So people have the availability to see tattooed people quite regularly now. And at this time, broadcasts like MTV loved to feature celebrities who were covered in tattoos, and the general public admired the edgy look. And what's not to love? People in our modern society with tattoos are seen as sexy and mysterious. A bad boy, perhaps? Or maybe a tortured artistic soul. Either way, young people love tattoos, and the fact that they could see them on their favorite actors and actresses only helped more people warm up to the idea of getting one of their own. By the time TV executives caught on, they were like, how can we make some money out of this, right? And what they did was create some TV shows like New York Inc. and London Inc., which came out in 2005 and 2007, respectively. And now, at this point, I don't think a lot of people would really bat a lash if they saw somebody with a full sleeve of tattoos just on their arms or even like neck and face tattoos. I'm not necessarily speaking for the older generation, but I feel like most younger people are fairly okay with most tattoos. Personally, I've met so many wonderful people with really awesome tattoos. Either they look really cool or have a deeply personal meaning to the owner, or sometimes both. Either way, it's super cool to me that someone would have a piece of permanent artwork on themselves. And personally, I don't buy the whole like opinion of, oh, what think about what you're going to look like when you're old and wrinkly, because it's like, I don't know, you should have some kind of level of spontaneity in your life, and we're all going to look old and wrinkly at some point. So you might as well enjoy your youth while you can, right? This video was brought to you by me. Shameless plug. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps the channel. I by far have not covered everything that I possibly could have about tattoos. We would have taken like months to get through it, okay? But I hope you enjoyed this little schnecky schnack of information, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!